The room went completely still as the single dad reached into his worn backpack and pulled out something no one expected to see. The billionaire's wife froze. Doctor stopped moving. The deaf little boy stared at the object in his father's hands, unaware that in the next few minutes, everything people believed about his silence would be challenged. Before we go any further, if stories about unexpected kindness, quiet courage, and human connection move you even a little, subscribe to Kindness Tales. Give this video a like, and let me know your thoughts in the comments as we walk through this moment together. The boy had been born into luxury most people could only imagine. His father was a tech billionaire whose name appeared on buildings and magazine covers. Their house sat on a hill overlooking a quiet California suburb, all glass walls, endless light, and carefully landscaped lawns. But inside that beautiful home, there was a silence that money couldn't fix. The doctors had confirmed it early. Profound hearing loss. No cure, no miracle surgery. Just a lifetime of adjustments, therapies, and careful planning. The mother tried to stay strong, but grief settled into her bones. She watched other babies respond to lullabies and clapping hands while her son slept through it all. The father threw money at the problem, not out of arrogance, but desperation. He flew specialists in from around the world. He funded research labs. He bought the most advanced hearing devices available. None of it worked. Their son learned to communicate through signs and expressions. And though he was bright and affectionate, there was a quiet sadness that lingered in the house. Then life changed in a way no one could have planned. The marriage cracked under pressure and exhaustion. Late nights turned into arguments. Arguments turned into distance. Eventually, the mother left, seeking peace somewhere else. The billionaire was suddenly raising a deaf child alone in a mansion that felt far too big and far too quiet. To help manage daily life, he hired a caregiver recommended by a local agency. A single dad himself, the man arrived early every morning on an old bus, carrying a backpack that had clearly seen better days. He didn't talk much about his past. What was known was simple. His wife had passed away years earlier. He had raised his own son alone until an accident took the boy's life as a teenager. Since then, he worked with children who needed patience more than pity. From the first day, something about him felt different. He didn't rush. He didn't overcompensate. He learned sign language in weeks, practicing late at night after work. When the boy struggled to express frustration, the caregiver didn't correct him or push him. He sat on the floor, met him at eye level and waited. Over time, the child began to smile more. He brought books over. He tugged gently at the man's sleeve when he wanted attention. The billionaire noticed this shift but didn't comment at first. He was used to professionals doing their jobs well. Still, there was something about how his son looked at this man, with trust that felt deep and unforced. One afternoon, the father came home early and found them sitting in the backyard. The caregiver had placed his hand flat on a wooden table while tapping gently with the other. The boy's hand rested on top, eyes wide, focused on the vibrations moving through the wood. He laughed, a silent laugh, shoulders bouncing with joy. The father watched from a distance, confused but curious. Later that night, he asked what that was about. The caregiver simply smiled and said he was teaching him how sound can be felt, not just heard. The answer lingered in the air longer than expected. Weeks passed. The boy began anticipating those moments. He would drag objects around the house, placing his hands against speakers, windows, even the washing machine. Fascinated by movement and rhythm, the caregiver encouraged it gently, never promising anything, never framing it as a fix. Then came the hospital appointment, another round of evaluations, another confirmation that nothing had changed. The billionaire sat stiffly, while doctors spoke in careful, sympathetic tones. This was when the caregiver asked a quiet question. Would it be all right if he tried something? The room exchanged uncertain looks. The father hesitated, then nodded. At this point, hope felt fragile but necessary. That was the moment when the caregiver reached into his old backpack and pulled out the mysterious object. It looked handmade, wires carefully wrapped, smooth wood shaped by patient hands. It didn't resemble any medical device the doctors recognized. The billionaire felt a flash of irritation. This was a hospital, not a workshop. But something in the caregiver's calm expression stopped him from interrupting. He explained softly that his own father had been a machinist who loved music. When the caregiver was a child, his father built instruments not to be played, but to be felt. For people who couldn't hear, he believed sound still lived in the body. This object was one of those creations, refined over years, adjusted after his own son lost his hearing temporarily following an injury. They never recovered that part of their story together, but the belief stayed with him. The doctors allowed it, more out of curiosity than expectation. The boy sat on his father's lap, small fingers resting on the wooden surface. The caregiver activated the device gently. No loud noises, no sudden changes. Just low, steady vibrations traveling upward. At first, nothing happened. The room held its breath. Then the boy's eyes widened. His fingers curled instinctively, gripping the edges. His breathing changed. He looked up at his father, searching his face, then back down again. The vibration shifted, subtle but deliberate. The boy smiled. Not the polite smile adults often look for, but a deep, surprised joy that spread across his whole face. The doctors leaned in. Instruments were adjusted. Tests were repeated. What they discovered didn't rewrite medicine, but it reframed understanding. The boy wasn't hearing in the traditional sense, but through bone conduction and trained sensitivity, his brain was learning to interpret sound in a new way. Not through ears, but through touch and awareness. It wasn't a miracle cure. It was something quieter, something slower, but it was real. The billionaire felt something break open inside him. All the money, all the control, all the solutions he had tried to buy hadn't brought this moment. It came from a man who arrived each morning on a bus, carrying patience and belief in a worn backpack. Over the following months, the device became part of daily life. Specialists studied it. Therapists adapted exercises around it. The boy learned rhythm, then tone, then eventually, with assistance, certain sounds. The first time he reacted to his father calling his name, not by hearing it, but by feeling the vibration through a surface they shared. The father cried openly, unconcerned with who saw. The caregiver never took credit. When offered money to develop the device commercially, he declined at first. He asked only that it remain accessible to families who couldn't afford private labs or luxury treatments. The billionaire, humbled, agreed. Together, they funded a small foundation focused not on curing deafness, but expanding ways people experience the world. The mansion felt different after. That fuller, warmer, the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was alive with connection. Years later, the boy would grow into a confident teenager who navigated both silence and sensation with ease. He would say that what changed his life wasn't learning to feel sound, but watching his father learn to listen in new ways. Kindness doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in the hands of someone who refuses to accept limits as the final word. This story reminds us that solutions aren't always found in power or wealth, but in empathy, patience, and the courage to try something different. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today, and tell us in the comments about a moment when kindness changed your world.